My name is Gabriella. I'm 47 years old. The foreclosure notice sits on top of my kitchen table, like a snake coiled between the electric bill and my daughter Keisha's college loan statements. 3 months behind on the mortgage, it says in bold black letters that might as well be shouting at me. I can smell the bergamot from my morning Earl Grey still lingering in the air, mixing with the faint scent of shea butter I rubbed into my hands before I opened that envelope. My fingers keep tracing the edges of the paper, smooth and official and cold against my fingertips. Mama always said this kitchen table would outlast us all. Solid oak, inherited from my grandmother, who bought it with her first paycheck from the textile mill back in 1962. The wood is worn smooth now from decades of family dinners, homework sessions, and bill-paying Sundays like this one. I can feel every groove under my palms, every ring stain from sweet tea glasses and coffee mugs. This table has held birthday cakes and report cards, Christmas morning wrapping paper and Easter egg dye. Now it's holding the end of everything. The stack of bills fans out like playing cards nobody wants to draw from. Phone company, car payment, Keisha's books for her sophomore year at Spelman. My sister Denise keeps telling me I should have asked for help sooner, but she's got her own troubles with Mama's medical bills piling up since the stroke. Besides, I'm supposed to be the one with it together. The one who made it out of the projects, got my nursing degree, bought this house in a neighborhood where the lawns stay green and the streetlights work. I hear Keisha's key in the front door, her voice calling out, "Mama, you home?" Like she always does, even when my car's sitting right there in the driveway. The sound of her heels clicking across the hardwood floors makes my chest tighten. She's got those gold hoops in that catch the afternoon sunlight streaming through my lace curtains, probably wearing that bright yellow sundress she loves because it makes her brown skin glow. My baby girl, home from her Saturday study group, expecting to find me cooking Sunday dinner prep like always. I slide the foreclosure notice under the stack of other bills, my silk head wrap slipping slightly as I lean forward. The fabric is African print, purple and gold, a gift from my church sister Vanessa, who went to Ghana last year. It feels too pretty for a day like this, too hopeful against my scalp where worry has been building like storm clouds since I opened that envelope 20 minutes ago. The grease is already heating in my cast iron skillet for the chicken I promised to fry. I can hear it starting to pop and whisper. The sound my grandmother taught me means it's almost ready. But my hands won't move toward the flour I set out earlier, won't reach for the seasoning salt that's been in this same spot on the counter for 3 years now. Instead, I keep staring at that corner of white paper peeking out from under the electric bill, wondering how I'm going to tell my daughter that the house she brought her first boyfriend to, the house where she learned to braid hair in my bathroom mirror, might not be ours much longer. Keisha rounds the corner into my kitchen with that bounce in her step that means she's got good news to share. Her natural hair is twisted up in a pineapple, edges laid smooth with whatever gel her roommate keeps recommending, and she's practically glowing in that yellow dress that makes her look like sunshine walking. "Mama, guess what happened at study group today?" She drops her backpack by the door and immediately starts washing her hands at the sink, muscle memory from 18 years of my house rules. Professor Williams pulled me aside after we finished reviewing for midterms, and she wants to recommend me for this summer research program at the CDC. Full stipend, Mama. Like actual money to do research on health disparities in rural communities. The wooden spoon in my hand stops stirring the greens I started without thinking. Collard leaves swim in pot liquor seasoned with smoked turkey necks, the smell rising up rich and earthy, mixing with the cornbread baking in the oven. My chest should be swelling with pride. My baby girl, getting recognized by professors, making her mark at Spelman like I always dreamed she would. Instead, all I can think about is that white paper hidden under the bills. Those 3 months of missed payments that could steal this moment from us. "That's wonderful, baby." The words come out flat despite my efforts, and I watch Keisha's face shift as she really looks at me for the first time since walking in. She's got my eyes, dark brown, and quick to catch what people aren't saying, and right now, they're narrowing with concern. What's wrong? She moves to the cabinet without being asked, pulling down the good plates, the ones with tiny blue flowers that belong to my grandmother. Her movements are careful, deliberate, the way she gets when she's trying to figure out if she should worry. You look like Sister Patricia did that Sunday she found out about her husband's gambling. I turn back to the stove, using the excuse of checking the greens to avoid her gaze. The cast iron pot holds heat like a prayer, warming my face as I lift the lid. Steam rises up, carrying the scent of garlic and onion powder, and I breathe it in deep, trying to find some comfort in the familiar ritual. But my hands are shaking just enough that the lid rattles when I set it back down. Just tired from work, that's all. The lie tastes bitter on my tongue, sharper than the pepper I added to the greens. Mrs. Henderson in room 302 had another episode last night. Kept us all running until dawn. Keisha sets the plates down with more force than necessary, the ceramic clicking against the wooden table in a rhythm that sounds like impatience. Mama! Her voice has that tone she gets when she thinks I'm treating her like she's still 12 instead of 20. I've been watching you count and recount those bills for the past month every time I come home. And don't think I didn't notice you switched from name-brand groceries to store-brand everything. The oven timer goes off, sharp and insistent, and I'm grateful for the excuse to turn away from her knowing look. I pull the cornbread out, golden brown and perfect, the smell of butter and cornmeal filling the space between us. The cast iron skillet is hot enough that I can hear the batter still bubbling at the edges, and I set it on the cooling rack next to the sweet tea pitcher that's been sweating condensation all afternoon. CDC research program, I say, trying to steer us back to safer ground, while I cut squares of cornbread with Mama's old knife. Tell me more about that. What kind of research would you be doing? But Keisha's not having it. She moves around the table, her heels clicking against the linoleum in a pattern I recognize. The same restless pacing she did as a little girl when she was working up the courage to confess about broken lamps or failed tests. Now she's gathering the scattered bills with quick, efficient movements, and my heart starts hammering against my ribs like it's trying to escape. Keisha, don't. Health disparities, Mama. You know what that means? Her fingers find the edge of the foreclosure notice before I can stop her, pulling it free from the stack with a sharp intake of breath. It means I study what happens when people don't have access to the resources they need. When they can't afford. The words die in her throat as her eyes scan the official letterhead, the bold print that spells out exactly how far behind we are. The silence stretches between us like taffy, sticky and uncomfortable, filled only with the sound of gospel music drifting low from the radio on the windowsill. Yolanda Adams is singing about being blessed, and the irony isn't lost on either of us. The foreclosure notice crinkles between Keisha's fingers like autumn leaves, and I watch 20 years of careful protection crumble in the space of a heartbeat. Her face goes through changes I've seen before. Confusion melting into understanding hardening into something that looks too much like the expression I wore when I realized Daddy wasn't coming back from his quick run to the store. 3 months behind. Her voice comes out small, younger than it sounded since she started college. Mama, 3 months? The wooden spoon slips from my hand, clattering against the stove with a sharp metal sound that makes us both flinch. Grease from the greens spatters across my wrist, tiny pinpricks of heat that barely register against the cold, spreading through my chest. I reach for the dish towel hanging on the oven handle, the cotton rough and familiar under my fingers, worn soft from years of cleaning up messes just like this one. Baby, listen. No. Keisha shakes her head. Those natural curls I helped her learn to love bouncing with the force of it. No, Mama. You listen. You've been killing yourself at that nursing home, picking up double shifts, and I thought it was just because you wanted to help people. But you've been trying to keep us afloat this whole time, haven't you? She's pacing now, her sandals slapping against the linoleum in quick, agitated steps that remind me of her grandmother when she got worked up about something. The bills flutter in her hand like she's forgotten she's holding them, and I can see her mind working, connecting dots I'd hoped she'd never have to see. The store brand cereal. The way you always have some excuse when I suggest we go shopping together. That time you said the car needed work, but I never saw any mechanic bills. She stops moving, turns to face me with eyes that look exactly like mine did in the mirror this morning, tired and scared, and trying so hard to be strong. How long have you been carrying this by yourself? The question hits me like communion wine on an empty stomach, sharp and burning all the way down. I lean against the counter, feeling the cool formica against my palms, trying to find words that won't make this worse. The radio keeps playing, some smooth jazz now that sounds like Saturday morning cleaning music, but it feels wrong for this moment, too peaceful for the way my world is tilting sideways. Since your daddy stopped sending support 2 years ago? The admission comes out hoarse, like I've been holding it in my throat too long. Since Aunt Diane needed help with your grandmother's medical bills, and I couldn't say no. Since tuition went up and your meal plan cost more than I budgeted for. Keisha sinks into the chair across from me, the same spot where she used to sit doing homework while I cooked dinner, where she'd tell me about boys and teachers and dreams that seemed so far away from this little house in West End. Now she looks like she's carrying the weight of understanding, and I hate that I put it on her shoulders. The CDC program. Her voice is steady now, businesslike in a way that makes my stomach clench. The stipend is $1,500 a month plus housing. I could defer my fall semester, work the program through December. Absolutely not. The words come out harder than I intended, sharp enough to cut through the smell of cornbread cooling and the soft hum of the refrigerator. Keisha Marie, don't you even think about it. You are not stopping your education because I made poor financial decisions. She leans forward, elbows on the table, and I can see the stubborn set of her jaw that she inherited from my side of the family. It's the same expression I wore when I told Mama I was going to nursing school, even if it meant working nights at the diner to pay for it. The same look I had when I decided to buy this house instead of staying in the apartment that was cheaper, but had no yard for my baby girl to play in. They're not poor decisions, Mama. You've been taking care of everyone. Me, Aunt Diane, Grandmama when she was sick. You put me through private school, made sure I had everything I needed for college applications, bought me that laptop when mine crashed during finals week. Her fingers find mine across the table, warm and soft, but with calluses from the campus job she insisted on taking despite my protests. When exactly were you supposed to take care of yourself? The truth of it sits heavy in my chest like sweet potato pie eaten too fast. I look at our hands together, mine showing the wear of 23 years in healthcare. Hers still young and smooth, but already marked by late-night study sessions and determination. The afternoon light coming through the kitchen window catches the gold bracelet on her wrist, the one I bought her for high school graduation, even though it meant eating peanut butter sandwiches for lunch that whole month. I was supposed to figure it out. My voice breaks on the last word, and suddenly I'm crying, the tears I've been holding back since that first missed payment. I was the one who made it out, baby girl. I was supposed to be the success story, the one who bought the house and sent her daughter to college and proved that we could rise above. I wasn't supposed to let us lose everything right when you're so close to finishing. Keisha squeezes my fingers, and I feel the strength in her grip. The certainty that reminds me she's not my little girl anymore, but a woman who can handle hard truths and make difficult choices. The kitchen fills with the sound of my tears and the distant rumble of Mrs. Johnson's lawnmower next door. Ordinary sounds that make this moment feel both too big and too small for the space we're sitting in. We're not losing everything, Mama. She reaches across the table for a napkin, hands it to me with the same gentle care I used to show her when she skinned her knees learning to ride that second-hand bicycle. We're just going to figure out a different way to win. The napkin feels rough against my cheeks, scratched from years of washing and folding, and I can smell the faint scent of downy fabric softener that reminds me of Sunday laundry days when Keisha was small. She's looking at me with those eyes that see too much now, and I realize there's more she needs to know. More dots she's going to connect whether I help her or not. There's something else. I wipe my nose, trying to find the courage that got me through nursing school and single motherhood, and all those nights when the bills spread across this same table like tarot cards predicting a future I didn't want to see. I took out a second mortgage last year to cover your sophomore year expenses and help with your grandmother's funeral costs. The silence stretches between us like the gap in conversation during church announcements, heavy with things that need to be said but hurt too much to voice. I can hear the ice maker in the refrigerator dropping cubes, a sound that usually means home and comfort, but now feels like a countdown timer. Keisha's face changes, and I watch her do the math. Tuition, room and board, books, the emergency root canal I had in March that insurance barely covered. Her fingers tap against the table, a nervous habit she's had since middle school when she'd drum against her desk during tests. How much do we owe total? Her voice is steady, but I can see the muscle in her jaw working. That tells she gets when she's trying to process information that's too big to fit in her head all at once. I pull the foreclosure notice from where I'd folded it under the sugar bowl, smooth it out between us like I'm laying out fabric for a quilt. The numbers stare back at us, black ink on white paper that might as well be a death sentence for everything I've tried to build. $43,000 on the first mortgage, $18,000 on the second. Plus the late fees and the property taxes I couldn't pay in December. The words taste like copper pennies in my mouth, bitter and metallic. Your Aunt Diane, she offered to help, but she's already stretched thin with the kids and trying to keep her own lights on. Keisha studies the papers, and I watch her transform into someone I don't quite recognize. Not my college baby anymore, but a woman doing calculations and considering options with the same focused intensity she brings to her biochemistry labs. The afternoon light shifts, casting longer shadows across the linoleum floor that needs replacing, but probably never will now. The CDC program, she says again, but this time there's something different in her voice, something that makes the hair on my arms stand up like when a storm's coming. Mama, it's not just $1,500 a month. There's a possibility of extending it into a full research position after graduation. Dr. Williams mentioned it yesterday. Some of their program participants get offered permanent positions with starting salaries around $60,000. I feel my chest tighten, the way it does when I'm working a double shift and haven't eaten enough. That hollow ache that spreads from my ribs to my throat. Keisha, no. You are not dropping out of Spelman to save this house. I won't let you sacrifice your future because I couldn't manage my present. She stands up, moves to the window where she can look out at the backyard I planted with collard greens and tomatoes every spring, where I taught her to braid dandelion stems into crowns when she was 6 and believed I could fix anything. The late afternoon sun catches the auburn highlights in her natural hair, the color she gets from my side of the family, And I remember the day she decided to stop relaxing it, how proud I was to see her embrace what God gave her. It's not dropping out, it's strategic planning. She turns back to face me, and there's steel in her expression now, the same determination I saw when she decided to major in biochemistry, despite her high school counselor trying to steer her toward education or social work. I defer for 1 semester, take the program, save every penny of that stipend. By January, I'll have enough to catch up the mortgage payments and still have money for my final year. The logic of it hits me like gospel truth during a particularly pointed sermon, clear and undeniable and absolutely not what I want to hear. I stand up too, needing to move, to do something with my hands that feels suddenly useless. I start clearing the counter, wiping down surfaces that don't need cleaning, anything to avoid looking at the hope and fear warring in my daughter's face. And what if they don't offer you the permanent position? What if deferring messes up your financial aid for senior year? What if... I stop myself, recognizing the spiral of what-ifs that kept me awake so many nights, playing out disaster scenarios until dawn crept through these same curtains. What if it works? Keisha's voice is quiet but firm, carrying the weight of a decision I can see she's already made. What if I'm good enough at the research that they want to keep me? What if taking 6 months to help my family is exactly the kind of real-world experience that makes me a better scientist? I lean against the sink, feeling the cool porcelain through my shirt, and catch sight of my reflection in the window over the kitchen table. The woman looking back at me has lines around her eyes that weren't there 5 years ago, gray threading through her temples despite the monthly touch-ups at Diane's friend's salon. She looks like someone who's been carrying too much for too long. Someone who raised a daughter smart enough and strong enough to see solutions where her mama only sees problems. The kitchen fills with the sound of our breathing and the distant rumble of traffic from the main road. Ordinary sounds that frame this extraordinary moment when everything I thought I knew about protecting my child gets turned upside down. Keisha moves closer, and I can smell the cocoa butter lotion she uses. The same brand I've been buying since she was a teenager, worried about ashy elbows. Let me help you, Mama. Her hand finds my shoulder, warm and sure, and suddenly, I'm the one being comforted, being cared for. Let me be strong enough to help save what you built for us. The weight of Keisha's hand on my shoulder feels like an anchor and a lifeline all at once, but I can't let her sacrifice derail before it even starts. I move away from her touch, not because I don't need it, but because I need to think without the warmth of her certainty clouding my judgment. The wooden floor creaks under my feet as I pace to the stove, where the cast iron skillet still holds traces of tonight's cornbread, and I can smell the lingering sweetness of molasses mixed with my fear. Baby, you don't understand what you're asking. I turn the burner on under the kettle, needing the ritual of making tea, needing something to do with my hands while my mind races. Spellman don't just hold your spot because you decide to take a semester off. Your financial aid package, your housing assignment, your lab position with Dr. Martinez, all of that could disappear. Keisha follows me, her footsteps lighter, but just as determined. I already called the financial aid office this morning, before I even knew about the foreclosure. They have a deferment program for students pursuing research opportunities. It's not uncommon. The words hit me like cold water. This morning? You called them this morning? I spin around to face her, and the kitchen suddenly feels too small, the walls pressing in like they did during those early years when I was working 3 jobs and still couldn't make ends meet. You've been planning this since before you even knew we were in trouble? Her chin lifts, and I see myself at 21, standing in my mama's kitchen, telling her I was going to nursing school, whether she thought I could afford it or not. I've been thinking about taking a gap semester anyway. The CDC program came up at exactly the right time, and when I saw how tired you looked when I got home yesterday, I started putting pieces together. The kettle begins to whistle, sharp and insistent, and I pour hot water over 2 tea bags, watching the amber color bloom through the clear liquid. Earl Grey, the good stuff I save for special occasions or when I need comfort that only bergamot can provide. The steam rises between us, carrying memories of every difficult conversation we've had in this kitchen, from the talk about periods to the one about boys to the night I told her grandmama wasn't coming home from the hospital. Keisha, listen to me. I slide her mug across the counter, noting how she wraps both hands around it like she used to when she was small and worried. I've been where you are, thinking I could fix everything by working harder, by sacrificing more. You know what it got me? Exhausted and behind on bills anyway. But even as I say it, I know it's not entirely true. My sacrifices got her to Spelman, got her the chance to have conversations with CDC researchers, got her the confidence to believe she can solve problems that would have seemed impossible to me at her age. The late shifts, and skipped meals, and secondhand everything, they worked, just not the way I expected them to. This is different, Mama. She sips her tea, and I watch her face change as the warmth hits her, the same expression of contentment she's had since she was 5, and I'd make us tea parties with my good china on Saturday afternoons. This isn't me dropping out to work at the mall or taking care of somebody else's kids. This is career development. This is using my education to help my family, which is what you always taught me education was for. The truth of that statement settles in my chest like a stone, heavy and undeniable. How many times did I tell her that knowledge was the one thing nobody could take away from her? How many nights did I help her with homework at this same table, telling her that her brain was her ticket to anywhere she wanted to go? I lean against the counter, feeling the cool laminate through my shirt, and notice how the afternoon light has shifted again, painting golden rectangles across the linoleum in patterns that will be gone in 20 minutes. The house feels different now, not just threatened, but somehow more precious, like I'm seeing it through Keisha's eyes for the first time. The mismatched chairs we painted together when she was 12, the windowsill herb garden that never quite thrives but keeps trying, the refrigerator covered with her honor roll certificates, and my work schedule and grocery lists written in both our handwriting. What did Dr. Williams say exactly? I ask, because I need details, need something concrete to weigh against the fear that's been my constant companion for months. Keisha sets down her mug and pulls out her phone, scrolling through what looks like a long email. The program runs January through June. $1,500 monthly stipend, plus health insurance, plus networking opportunities with researchers across 3 different departments. And Mama, she looks up at me with eyes bright as morning. She specifically mentioned that they've been trying to recruit more Black women into their epidemiology track. The kitchen goes quiet, except for the sound of Mrs. Patterson's dog barking next door and the distant rumble of the bus that stops at the corner every hour. I think about epidemiology, about disease patterns and public health, about all the ways my daughter could change the world if she gets the chance. Then I think about this house, about the mortgage payments and the property taxes, and the way financial stress can eat away at dreams faster than any disease. And if they don't offer you the permanent position? I have to ask, even though I can see the answer already forming in the determined set of her jaw. Then I go back to Spelman in the fall with 6 months of CDC research experience on my resume, money in the bank, and the knowledge that I helped save our home. She reaches across the counter for my hand, her fingers warm from the tea mug, and sure in a way that makes my throat tight. Mama, you've been protecting me my whole life, Let me protect you for 6 months." I let go of her hand and walk to the stove, needing something to do with my own hands before they start shaking. The cast iron skillet sits where I left it this morning, still holding traces of bacon grease from breakfast, and I reach for the bottle of vegetable oil without thinking. Sunday dinner prep. That's what my body wants to do when my mind can't make sense of everything else. The oil hits the hot pan with a satisfying sizzle, and I breathe in the familiar smell of something good about to happen. From the refrigerator, I pull out the package of chicken thighs I've been saving, the ones with the good marbling that'll fry up crispy and tender if I do it right. My hands move through the motions Grandmama taught me 40 years ago. Flour seasoned with paprika and garlic powder, buttermilk for soaking, the 3-step dance of wet, dry, wet that makes coating stick proper. "You making Sunday dinner on a Thursday?" Keisha asks, settling back into her chair with her tea, and I can hear the smile in her voice even though I'm not looking at her. "Mama always said you cook when you need to think," I tell her, dredging the first piece of chicken through buttermilk thick as cream. The cold liquid runs between my fingers, and I remember being 12 years old, standing on a step stool in this same kitchen, watching Mama's hands work magic with ordinary ingredients. She'd lost her job at the textile mill that week, and there we were, making Sunday dinner on a Tuesday, because she needed to feel like she could still provide something good for us. The first piece of chicken hits the oil with a violent hiss, grease jumping up to kiss my forearms with tiny stings that I barely notice anymore. This is the sound of comfort being born, the sound of love taking shape in hot oil and seasoned flour. I add 3 more pieces, listening to the symphony of bubbling and crackling that means everything's going right. "Remember when you were little and I'd let you help with the coating?" I ask, using my long-handled spoon to turn the chicken. The pieces are already starting to turn golden at the edges, and steam rises from the pan carrying the smell of garlic and paprika and something indefinably homey. "I remember getting flour all over everything except the chicken." Keisha laughs, and the sound fills the kitchen like music. "You'd have to redo half my pieces, but you never told me I was doing it wrong." The memory comes back sharp and clear. Keisha at 8 years old, standing on that same step stool I used, her little hands more enthusiastic than skilled, flour in her braids and buttermilk on her school uniform. I was working 2 jobs then too, but different ones, cleaning offices at night and stocking shelves during the day. And Sunday dinner prep was our time together, the one thing that couldn't be rushed or shortened or skipped. I flipped the chicken pieces one by one, watching the coating bubble and crisp into perfect golden brown. The smell is getting stronger now, mixing with the Earl Grey steam still rising from our mugs, and the faint scent of the pine cleaner I used on the floors this morning. It's the smell of home, of family, of all the ways we take care of each other that don't show up on bank statements or mortgage documents. I kept thinking about that CDC program all last semester, Keisha says quietly, and I can feel her watching me work. Even before I knew about the money trouble, something about it just felt right. Like maybe this was my chance to do something that mattered. My wooden spoon scrapes against the cast iron as I adjust the heat, and the sound echoes off the tile backsplash that's been needing repair for 3 years now. The chicken is almost done, the coating dark gold and crackling with tiny bubbles that mean the oil temperature is perfect. I reach for the paper towel-lined plate, the one with the chip on the rim that makes it unsuitable for company but perfect for family meals. "What kind of research would you be doing?" I ask, lifting the first piece from the oil and watching excess grease drip back into the pan. The chicken looks perfect, crispy and substantial, the kind of food that makes you feel like everything might be okay after all. "Disease prevention in underserved communities," she says, and I can hear the excitement creeping back into her voice. "Mama, they want to study why certain neighborhoods have higher rates of diabetes and heart disease, and what interventions actually work. They want to figure out how to help people like us stay healthy. I set the last piece of chicken on the plate and turn off the burner, letting the oil settle into stillness. The kitchen feels warmer now, full of good smells and the kind of quiet that comes after important things have been said. Through the window above the sink, I can see Mrs. Johnson hanging laundry in her backyard, white sheets snapping in the breeze like prayers made visible. People like us, I repeat, wiping my hands on the dish towel that's been hanging on the oven handle for so long, it's soft as cloth. When did you start thinking of yourself that way? Keisha is quiet for a moment, rolling her tea mug between her palms. Maybe when I realized that all my Spellman friends are worried about internships and graduate school applications, and I'm worried about whether my mama has enough money to keep the lights on. The truth of that settles in my chest, heavy and complicated. I raised her to dream bigger than this neighborhood, bigger than our circumstances, and somehow she's learned to dream with us still in mind. That's not failure. That's love with roots so deep they'll bend, but never break. I pull 2 plates from the cabinet, the everyday ones with the blue flowers around the rim, and portion out chicken and leftover green beans from yesterday. The food looks good, substantial, like proof that we're still a family that sits down together and shares what we have. Your great-grandmama used to say that the Lord puts opportunities in your path when you need them most, I tell Keisha, setting her plate in front of her. Maybe this CDC thing isn't just about helping me. Maybe it's about helping you figure out who you're meant to become. The chicken is still warm on our plates when Keisha sets down her fork and looks at me with those eyes that see too much. Mama, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. My stomach drops like I've missed a step in the dark. I take a sip of my tea, buying time. But the Earl Grey tastes bitter now, like leaves steeped too long. What is it, baby? The second mortgage you took out for my school and Grandmama's funeral. When exactly did you do that? I can feel heat creeping up my neck, the same flush I get when I'm caught in something I'd rather not explain. The kitchen suddenly feels too small, too bright, and I focus on cutting my chicken into smaller pieces than necessary. The crispy coating cracks under my knife with tiny snapping sounds. Does it matter when? I ask, but even I can hear how weak that sounds. It matters because I've been thinking about the timeline. Keisha pushes her green beans around her plate, and I recognize the gesture. She's organizing her thoughts the same way she organizes her food, keeping everything separate until she's ready to deal with it. Grandmama died in March of my sophomore year. I remember because I missed midterms to come home for the funeral. The afternoon light streaming through the kitchen window catches the gold in her skin, and for a moment she looks exactly like my mother did at that age. Determined and beautiful, and absolutely unwilling to be lied to. The resemblance makes my chest tight with missing and pride and fear all mixed together. Keisha, honey, let's just eat our... Mama. Her voice is gentle but firm, the tone she probably uses with difficult lab partners or professors who try to dismiss her ideas. The mortgage papers are in your bedroom drawer, aren't they? The one where you keep all the important documents in that old shoebox from when I was little? My fork clatters against my plate, and the sound echoes off the walls like an accusation. How does she know about that drawer? But even as I think it, I remember all the times she's helped me look for insurance papers or tax forms. How she's always been the organized one between us, the one who remembers where things go. You went through my papers? The question comes out sharper than I intended, and I immediately regret the defensive edge in my voice. I was looking for the water bill last month when you were at work, she says quietly. You'd asked me to pay it, remember? And I saw the mortgage documents. I didn't read them then, but I noticed the date. She leans forward, and I can smell the cocoa butter lotion she always uses after her shower, mixed with the lingering scent of the laboratory soap that never quite washes off her hands. It's the smell of my daughter. Science and softness, ambition and care. You took out that second mortgage in January of my sophomore year, she continues, 2 months before Grandmama died. Which means you didn't borrow money for her funeral, Mama. You borrowed money because you were already struggling to pay for my school. The truth sits between us like a third person at the table, uninvited but impossible to ignore. I can hear Mrs. Johnson's screen door slam next door, followed by the sound of her calling her grandbaby in for supper. Normal sounds from a normal evening in a normal life, while mine feels like it's cracking open at the seams. The funeral costs just made everything worse. I say finally, my voice barely above a whisper. But you're right. I was already drowning by then. Keisha reaches across the table and covers my hand with hers. Her palm is warm and slightly rough from lab work, and the touch grounds me in a way I desperately need. Why didn't you tell me? I could have transferred somewhere cheaper, or taken a gap year, or... Because that's not what mothers do. The words come out fierce, surprising us both. We don't ask our children to make themselves smaller to fit our limitations. That's not how this works. But look where it got us, Mama. You're about to lose the house anyway, and I'm sitting here feeling guilty about every textbook, every meal plan payment, every penny you spent on me while you were falling apart. I turn my hand palm up under hers, lacing our fingers together. Her nails are short and practical, no polish, with a small scar on her knuckle from a chemistry accident freshman year. These are hands that will save lives, hands that will change the world, hands that I mortgaged our future to train. I'd do it again, I tell her, and I mean it with every fiber of my being. Every single penny, every extra shift, every sleepless night worrying about money. I'd do it all again because you're worth it. Because what you're going to accomplish is worth it. She's crying now, tears sliding down her cheeks and dripping onto our joined hands. But what if I'm not, Mama? What if I fail? What if I can't live up to all this sacrifice? Baby girl. I squeeze her fingers tight, feeling the calluses she's earned from years of hard work and late nights in the lab. You already have. You're not failing anything. You're choosing to love your family enough to help us. That's not failure. That's exactly who I raised you to be. The kitchen fills with the sound of her quiet crying, and the distant hum of the refrigerator, and the settling sounds the house makes when the day starts cooling into evening. Outside, I can hear children playing in the street, their voices high and carefree, the way Keisha's used to sound before she learned to worry about grown-up things. The CDC program? She says through her tears. If I take it, I can defer Spelman for a semester and still graduate on time. The stipend would help with the mortgage payments, and I'd get research experience that looks good for graduate school applications. And you'd be helping people like us, I add, remembering what she said earlier about disease prevention in underserved communities. She nods, wiping her eyes with the back of her free hand. Maybe I can figure out how to make sure other families don't have to choose between education and keeping their homes. Maybe that's worth a semester away from campus. I look at my daughter, my brilliant, compassionate, impossibly strong daughter, and feel something shift in my chest. Not relief exactly, but recognition. She's not the little girl who needed me to shield her from hard truths anymore. She's a woman making her own choices, and those choices happen to include taking care of me. Okay, I say, and the word feels like surrender and victory all at once. If this is what you want to do, then we'll make it work. The word hangs between us like a promise, but I can see the doubt creeping back into Keisha's eyes, even as she nods. She's still holding my hand, but her grip has loosened, and I recognize that look. It's the same one she wore when she was 7 and promised she'd clean her room, knowing full well she had no idea where to start. "We need to call them tomorrow," she says, but her voice wavers. "The CDC program, and I should probably talk to my advisor about the deferment paperwork." I can feel her pulling away, not physically, but emotionally, retreating into the practical details because the weight of what we're really discussing is too much. My daughter is about to give up her college experience to save our house, and we're both pretending this is just another problem with a neat, manageable solution. The kitchen window above the sink shows our reflection in the darkening glass. 2 brown women, one older and worn down by years of carrying too much alone, the other young and scared, but trying to be brave. The overhead light catches the silver threads that have started appearing in my hair more frequently, and I wonder when I got old enough to look like my mother in low light. "Keisha," I start, then stop, because what I'm about to say goes against every protective instinct I've developed over the last 18 years. "Before you make any calls, I need to tell you something else." She goes still, and I can smell the fear on her, that sharp, metallic scent that reminds me of pennies held too long in a sweaty palm. Her fingers tighten around mine again, and I realize she's been waiting for the other shoe to drop since the moment she found that foreclosure notice. "There's more?" Her voice is small, younger than her 20 years. I take a deep breath, tasting the lingering bacon grease in the air from dinner and the faint sweetness of the dish soap I used to clean up. These familiar smells ground me, remind me that I'm still in my own kitchen, still the mother who has kept this family fed and safe for 2 decades. "Your daddy called last week." The words drop between us like a stone into still water, sending ripples through everything we've just discussed. Keisha's hand jerks in mine, and for a moment, I think she might pull away entirely. But she doesn't. She sits there, staring at me with those wide eyes that look so much like his, it sometimes takes my breath away. "He called?" she whispers. "After all this time, he just called?" "He's been keeping track of you," I say, the admission tasting bitter on my tongue. "Through your grandmother on his side. She follows your academic achievements, shows him your dean's list certificates. He knows about Spellman, about your major, about how well you're doing." Keisha's face goes through a series of emotions. Surprise, anger, something that might be hope, then anger again. "And he's calling now because Grandmama Betty told him about the foreclosure." The words come out in a rush, like ripping off a bandage. "She heard about it through the church prayer chain. You know how news travels, and he wants to help." The silence that follows is different from the comfortable quiet we've been sharing. This one has teeth. I can hear the neighbor's dog barking 2 houses down, and somewhere in the distance, a car door slams. Normal sounds from a normal evening that feels anything but normal. "Help how?" Keisha's voice is flat, controlled in a way that tells me she's fighting to keep her emotions in check. I let go of her hand and get up to pour myself a glass of sweet tea from the pitcher in the refrigerator. My hands need something to do, and the cold glass feels good against my palms, which have gone warm and damp with nervous sweat. The tea is the perfect amber color, sweet enough to make your teeth ache, the way Mama taught me to make it. "He has money now," I say, not looking at her. "Good job. Nice house in Atlanta. He offered to pay off the second mortgage." "Just like that?" The bitterness in her voice cuts through the air like a blade. "After 18 years of nothing, he wants to swoop in and save the day?" I turn around to face her, leaning back against the counter. She's sitting ramrod straight in her chair now, her shoulders rigid with tension, and I can see the pulse point in her neck beating fast. Her hands are flat on the table, pressed down like she's trying to keep herself from floating away. He says he owes us, I tell her. Says he knows he can't make up for lost time, but he can at least make sure you don't have to sacrifice your education because of his mistakes. His mistakes? Keisha's voice rises, and there's a tremor in it that makes my chest tight. Is that what we are? His mistakes? Baby, no. I move back toward the table, but she holds up a hand to stop me. Don't, she says, and the word is sharp enough to cut. Just don't. I need to think about this. She stands up abruptly, her chair scraping against the linoleum floor with a sound like fingernails on a chalkboard. So now, I have 3 choices. Take the CDC job and defer school, let you lose the house, or accept money from the man who walked out on us when I was 2 years old. Keisha. And the best part is, all 3 options involve me giving up something important. She's pacing now, her bare feet slapping against the floor with each agitated step. My college experience, our home, or my pride, those are my choices. I watch her move through the kitchen like a caged animal, her natural hair catching the overhead light as she turns. She's beautiful, even in her anger, beautiful and brilliant, and so much stronger than I was at her age. But right now, she looks exactly like the scared little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. There's a 4th choice, I say quietly. She stops pacing and turns to look at me, her eyebrows raised in question. We could sit down with him, all 3 of us. Set some ground rules, make it clear this is about you, not about him trying to buy his way back into our lives. You would do that? She asks. After everything? I think about the man who used to make me laugh until my sides hurt, who promised me forever and then changed his mind when forever got complicated by a baby and bills and the reality of being young and poor and scared. I think about the years of doing everything alone, of being both mother and father, of making sure Keisha never felt the absence of something she'd never really had. And then, I think about the woman she's become despite, or maybe because of, all of that. For you? I say, meeting her eyes across the kitchen. I'd do anything. The look on Keisha's face when I say those words, I'd do anything, shifts from anger to something softer, something that reminds me of Sunday mornings when she was little and would climb into my lap during the long sermons at Mount Olive Baptist. But then her expression hardens again, like she's remembering something that put steel back in her spine. Mama, you already did everything, she says, and her voice carries a weight that makes my chest feel tight. You worked double shifts at the hospital. You went back to school for your nursing degree while I was in high school. You took out that second mortgage. You've been doing everything for 20 years. I reach for the dish towel hanging by the sink, needing something to occupy my hands while my heart hammers against my ribs. The terry cloth is soft and worn, smelling faintly of the lavender fabric softener I've been using since Keisha was born. The same brand Mama used to use because it was gentle on sensitive skin. That's what mothers do, I tell her. But even as I say it, I can hear how tired it sounds. No, Mama. Keisha moves closer, and I can smell the coconut oil she uses in her hair, mixed with the faint scent of the cocoa butter lotion she's been using since she was 12. That's what you did, but it doesn't have to be what you keep doing forever. She pulls out her phone from her back pocket, the case decorated with a picture of us from her high school graduation, both of us grinning wide, my arm around her shoulders, her cap slightly crooked because she'd been laughing at something her friend Tiana had whispered right before the photo. The memory of that day Feels like a lifetime ago, back when the future seemed full of nothing but possibility. I'm going to call him, she says, and my stomach drops like I've just stepped off a cliff. Baby, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Her fingers are already moving across the screen, and I can hear the soft tap-tap-tapping that means she's typing a message. Because this isn't just about money, is it? This is about him thinking he can show up now and fix everything with a check, and me wondering my whole life if I should have let him try. The sound of her typing stops, and she looks up at me with those eyes that are so much like his it sometimes catches me off guard. But the determination in them? That's all mine. Inherited through years of watching me figure out how to make impossible things work. What are you saying to him? I ask, because I need to know, need to prepare myself for whatever comes next. I'm telling him we need to meet, all three of us like you said. But not here. She gestures around the kitchen, and I understand immediately. This space is ours, the place where we've shared thousands of meals, where she's done homework at this same table since kindergarten, where I've held her through heartbreaks and celebrated her victories. It's sacred in a way that doesn't include him. Where then? Neutral ground. Maybe that coffee shop downtown, the one with the big windows that looks out on the park. She pauses in her typing to look at me again. And I want to set some rules before we go. I nod, even though part of me wants to snatch that phone out of her hands and pretend this conversation never happened. But I can see something shifting in her posture, in the set of her shoulders. She's not the scared girl who found the foreclosure notice 2 hours ago. She's becoming someone else. Someone who faces hard things head on instead of letting them happen to her. What kind of rules? I ask. First, this meeting is about practical stuff only. He doesn't get to apologize or explain or try to have some big emotional reunion. We're not his family therapy session. Her voice is crisp, businesslike, and I recognize the tone from when she's presenting her research projects at school. Second, if he wants to help financially, we need to see actual proof. Bank statements, loan documents, whatever. No promises or good intentions. She sends the message with a decisive tap and then looks at me directly. And third, you don't get to protect me from this conversation. I know you, Mama. I know you'll try to handle all the hard parts yourself. But this affects me too. I get to ask the questions I want to ask, even if they make you uncomfortable. The third rule hits me harder than the first two because she's right. I can already feel myself mentally preparing to smooth over rough edges, to deflect his attention from her onto me, to absorb whatever awkwardness or pain might come from seeing him again. It's what I've been doing for 20 years, standing between Keisha and anything that might hurt her. I can try, I tell her honestly, but you might have to remind me. It's hard to turn off 20 years of habit. Her phone buzzes with a response, and I watch her face as she reads it. Her eyebrows rise slightly, and then she shows me the screen. Tomorrow afternoon works. 2 p.m. at Bean. There, done that. And Keisha, thank you for giving me this chance. I know I don't deserve it. Been there, done that. I repeat, and despite everything, I almost smile. It's such a ridiculous name for a coffee shop. The kind of thing that would have made Keisha roll her eyes when she was 13 and thought everything was either totally awesome or completely embarrassing. So we're really doing this, she says, and it's not a question. We're really doing this. She puts her phone down on the table and looks around the kitchen, at the collection of mismatched coffee mugs hanging from hooks under the cabinet, at the magnetic poetry words stuck to the refrigerator that spell out inside jokes from years past, at the small framed photo of her grandmother that sits on the windowsill above the sink. Mama, she says softly, what if he's different now? What if he's actually grown up and become the kind of man who could have been a good father? The question hangs in the air between us, heavy with all the what ifs and might have beens that I've spent 2 decades trying not to think about. Because the truth is, I've wondered the same thing. Late at night, when sleep won't come, I've wondered if he ever thinks about the daughter he left behind, if he's proud of who she's become, if he regrets the choice he made when everything got too hard. Then we'll figure out what that means. I tell her, together. But even as I say it, I can feel something shifting inside me, like tectonic plates moving deep underground. Tomorrow, I'll sit across from the man who broke my heart and changed the entire trajectory of my life. And I'll have to do it while watching him meet the incredible woman our daughter has become. The woman he had no part in raising. The kitchen feels too quiet after Keisha goes upstairs to shower and change for bed, so I do what my hands know best. I start cleaning. Not the surface kind of cleaning that company sees, but the deep down kind that gets into corners and crevices, the kind that makes a house feel like it can breathe again. I pull out Mama's old wooden stepladder from the pantry, the one with paint splatters from when she redid the bathroom in 1987, and climb up to wipe down the tops of the cabinets. My fingertips come away dusty, and I think about how Mama used to say a clean house was a clear mind. "Can't think straight in chaos, baby girl?" she'd tell me while scrubbing down baseboards with a toothbrush. "Get your space right, and your thoughts will follow." The warm, soapy water runs down my wrists as I work, carrying away months of accumulated cooking grease and everyday living. Up here, I can see the coffee ring stains on top of the refrigerator, where I set my mug while reaching for things on high shelves, and the fine coating of flour dust that never quite disappears no matter how often I wipe it down. These are the marks of a life lived fully, of a kitchen that feeds people regularly and well. From up on the ladder, I can also see the shoebox tucked way back on top of the corner cabinet, the one I thought was hidden from curious teenage eyes. Inside are letters I never sent, photos I couldn't bear to throw away, and the hospital bracelet from the day Keisha was born. 28 hours of labor, and when they finally placed her on my chest, all wrinkled and furious at being pulled into the bright world, the first thing I noticed was her hands. Perfect little fingers that gripped mine with surprising strength, as if she was saying, "It's just you and me now, Mama, but we got this." The ladder creaks as I shift my weight, and the sound reminds me of the old porch swing at my grandmother's house in Mississippi, where I spent summers learning to snap green beans and braid cornrows. Big Mama would sit me between her knees on that swing, her fingers working through my thick hair with coconut oil that smelled like sunshine and patience. "Child got good hair," she'd murmur. "But good hair don't mean nothing if you don't know how to take care of it properly." I climb down and move to the stove, pulling out each burner grate to scrub them clean in the sink. The cast iron is heavy in my hands, seasoned black from years of Sunday dinners and holiday feasts. This stove has cooked thousands of meals, birthday cakes and comfort food, celebration dinners, and sick day soups. The burn mark near the back left burner is from when Keisha was 8 and tried to surprise me with breakfast in bed, managing to flip pancakes onto everything except the plate. Hot, sudsy water makes my hands pink as I scrub, and I think about tomorrow's meeting. What will his hands look like now? Will they still have that small scar across the knuckles from when he tried to fix his motorcycle without the right tools? Will he still gesture when he talks, painting pictures in the air with his fingers the way he used to when he was excited about something? I dry the burner grates with a dish towel that's soft from 100 washings, and the familiar ritual of putting everything back in its proper place steadies something inside me. Each grate settles into position with a small metallic click, like puzzle pieces finding their home. This is my kitchen, my space, the heart of the home I built for my daughter. Whatever happens tomorrow, we come back to this. The refrigerator hums to life as I start wiping down its surface, and I smile at the collection of magnets holding up Keisha's accomplishments. Honor roll certificates, college acceptance letters, a photo of her presenting her research at a conference last spring. Her face glows with pride in that picture, and I remember how she called me immediately afterward, talking so fast with excitement that I had to ask her to slow down and tell me everything again. "Mama, they asked me 3 questions I didn't know the answers to," she'd said. But instead of pretending I knew, I told them exactly what I'd need to research to find out. And Dr. Martinez said that was the most honest response she'd heard all day. That's my girl, willing to admit what she doesn't know instead of faking her way through. It's a strength I had to learn the hard way, through years of pretending I had everything figured out when I was just making it up as I went along. The kitchen window above the sink faces east, and I can see the first pale hint of dawn touching the edges of the sky. In a few hours, Keisha will come down for coffee and toast, and we'll go through our normal morning routine like this conversation about meeting her father never happened. But something fundamental has shifted between us. She's not my little girl anymore, asking permission and waiting for me to handle the grown-up problems. She's a woman with her own opinions and her own right to make decisions about her life. I squeeze out the dish rag and hang it over the faucet to dry, then stand back to survey my work. The kitchen gleams in the soft light from the fixture over the sink. Not the harsh brightness of overhead bulbs, but the warm yellow glow that makes everything look like home. Tomorrow will bring whatever it brings, but tonight, this space is perfect and peaceful and ours. My bare feet are quiet on the clean linoleum as I turn off the light and head upstairs, carrying with me the satisfaction of a job well done and the courage that comes from having your house in order when everything else feels uncertain. The sound of Keisha's shower running upstairs lets me know I have maybe 20 minutes before she comes back down, looking for the conversation we both know we're not finished having. I pour myself a glass of sweet tea from the pitcher in the refrigerator, the ice cubes cracking as the cold liquid hits them. The sound reminds me of bones popping when you stretch after sitting too long, and I realize that's exactly what I need to do. Stretch these old truths that have been curled up inside me for 2 decades. I settle into the kitchen chair where I always sit, the one with the slight wobble that I've been meaning to fix for 3 years. From here, I can see the shoebox on top of the corner cabinet, and I know I can't keep pretending it doesn't exist. Not after tomorrow. Not after Keisha meets her father and starts asking the questions I've spent 20 years hoping she'd never think to ask. The tea is perfect, sweet enough to make your teeth ache, the way Mama taught me to make it. "Sugar's cheap," she used to say, "but a bitter woman is expensive." I can hear her voice clear as church bells, even though she's been gone 5 years now. She never got to see Keisha graduate high school, never got to fuss over her grandbaby going off to college. But she knew about David. She's the only one who knew the whole truth. My hands shake slightly as I reach for my phone on the counter. His number is still there in my contacts, right where I saved it yesterday after finding it in the old address book. David Martinez. Not David Do Not Call, like I had it saved for years. Not Keisha's father, like it was for a while after that. Just his name, plain and simple, like he's any other person in my life. The screen glows blue-white in the dim kitchen as I scroll to his contact. My thumb hovers over the call button, and I can smell the faint scent of lemon oil from cleaning the cabinets, mixing with the lingering aroma of fried chicken that's probably worked its way into my hair and clothes. This is what courage smells like, I think. Pledge and grease and sweet tea and the salt of tears you're trying not to cry. Before I can change my mind, I hit call. It rings twice before his voice comes through. deeper than I remember, but with that same careful way of speaking that used to make me think he was choosing each word like it mattered. Gabriella? Hey, David. My voice sounds steadier than I feel. I know it's late, early, whatever this is. It's 5:30 in the morning, he says, but there's no irritation in it, just a statement of fact. You couldn't sleep either? Been cleaning? I take a sip of tea, needing something to do with my mouth besides talk. Keisha wants to know why I never told her about you, the real reason. There's a pause long enough for me to hear the shower shut off upstairs, and I know my time is running shorter than I thought. What did you tell her? That I was protecting her. That I was scared. The words come out in a rush, like confession at church when you finally can't carry the weight anymore. But she's not buying it. She's too smart, and she's got too much of you in her. Too much of me how? His voice gets careful, and I can picture him the way he used to look when he was thinking hard about something. One hand rubbing the back of his neck, eyes focused somewhere just past your shoulder. She asks questions until she gets real answers. She doesn't let people off the hook with pretty explanations that don't add up. I stand and walk to the window, looking out at the street where a few early commuters are already heading to work. She found the foreclosure notice, David. She knows about the second mortgage. The silence stretches between us, filled with 20 years of things we never said. Finally, he speaks. Are you going to tell her about Maria? My breath catches, and I have to set down the tea glass before I drop it. Just hearing her name out loud after all these years makes my chest tight. I don't know. Should I? She has a right to know she has a sister. A half-sister. The correction comes out sharper than I meant it to, and I can hear my mother's voice in my tone, that edge that cuts when you're trying not to bleed. A half-sister who got the father and the family and the life that Keisha never had. That's not fair, Gabriella. Fair? I turn away from the window, pacing to the stove and back. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you choosing before I had to choose for all of us. Fair would have been you not making me the other woman in my own relationship. Upstairs, I hear Keisha's bedroom door open, her footsteps moving across the hall to her room. She'll be down in 10 minutes, hair wrapped in a silk scarf, looking for coffee and answers I'm still not ready to give. I was 26 years old, I continue, my voice dropping to a whisper. I was pregnant and in love with a married man who kept promising he was going to leave his wife. You know what that makes me, David? It makes me a fool, and I've spent 20 years making sure my daughter never has to be anybody's fool. Is that what you think? That loving me made you a fool? The question hits me like cold water, and I have to grip the edge of the counter to steady myself. The laminate is smooth under my palms, worn thin in spots from years of meal prep and homework supervision and late-night worry sessions just like this one. I think loving you made me human, I say finally. But staying with you would have made me something I couldn't live with. And Keisha deserved better than growing up watching her mother settle for crumbs. I can hear him breathing on the other end of the line, and for a moment, it's like we're 26 and 28 again, lying in his apartment on Sunday mornings, talking about everything and nothing while the world happened around us. Before I knew about Maria, before the pregnancy test, before the choice that changed everything. She looks like you, he says quietly. In the photos you sent. She has your eyes. She has your stubborn streak. That's all you, baby. That's all you. The endearment slips out so naturally that neither of us acknowledges it, but it sits in the air between us like a prayer or a goodbye. Footsteps on the stairs tell me Keisha is coming, and I need to end this call before she walks into a conversation I'm not ready to explain. David, when we meet tomorrow, when she meets you, she's going to want to know everything. About us, about why, about what happens next. And I can't keep lying to protect people who don't need protecting anymore. Then don't lie, he says simply. Tell her the truth. All of it. She's strong enough to handle it. You made sure of that. The kitchen door swings open and Keisha appears, hair wrapped in her grandmother's old silk scarf, wearing the oversized t-shirt she sleeps in. She looks young and old at the same time. My baby girl and the woman she's becoming all mixed up together. I have to go, I whisper into the phone. Gabriella, I'm proud of the job you did, raising her. I'm proud of both of you. I end the call and slip the phone into my robe pocket, turning to face my daughter, with whatever courage I can gather at 5:30 in the morning in a kitchen that smells like truth and consequences. Morning, baby. I turn from the counter, trying to make my voice sound normal, but Keisha's eyes go straight to my face the way they always do when she's reading me. Who are you talking to? She moves to the coffee maker, her bare feet silent on the linoleum, and I watch her hands, so much like mine but steadier right now, measure grounds into the filter. Your father. The words fall out of my mouth like stones into still water, sending ripples through everything. Keisha's hand freezes halfway to the water reservoir, coffee grounds scattered across the counter like brown confetti. The silence stretches between us, heavy as August air before a storm. My father. She says it flat, not a question, testing the weight of the words. The one who doesn't exist? Or the one you've been lying about for 20 years? I lean against the sink, gripping the edge until the metal rim digs into my palms. The pain keeps me anchored, keeps me from floating away from this moment I can't take back. Through the window, the sky is turning from black to deep purple, and Sister Washington's porch light is still on across the street. She's probably already up, making breakfast for her grandbaby before school. The one I've been protecting you from. My voice comes out steady, thank God, because inside I'm shaking like I did the night Keisha was born, when the doctor laid her on my chest, and I realized everything had changed forever. Keisha turns around slow, leaning back against the counter, arms crossed over her chest. She's wearing my old Howard t-shirt, the one I bought freshman year before I had to drop out, and seeing her in it makes my throat tight. Protecting me from what? From having a father? From knowing where half of me comes from? From being disappointed. The truth tastes like copper pennies and regret. From wanting something you couldn't have? From being hurt by someone who was never going to choose us first. She laughs, but it's not a happy sound. It's the laugh I used to make when bill collectors called, when the lights got cut off, when I had to explain why we couldn't afford the things other kids took for granted. So you chose for me instead. Yes. I meet her eyes, holding her gaze, even though it feels like looking directly into the sun. I chose for you. I chose to keep you safe. I chose to make sure you knew you were loved completely, instead of partially. I chose to be enough so you wouldn't feel the lack. But I did feel it, Mama. Her voice breaks on the word, and I see her swallow hard, fighting tears. I felt it every Father's Day at church when Pastor Williams talked about earthly fathers and heavenly fathers. I felt it every time someone asked about him, and you got that look, like you were swallowing glass. I felt it when kids at school talked about their dads teaching them to drive or walking them down the aisle someday. The coffee maker starts gurgling, filling the kitchen with the rich smell of morning routine. But nothing feels routine anymore. Everything feels cracked open, raw as a fresh wound. What's his name? She asks quietly. David Martinez. Saying it out loud feels like confession, like finally admitting to a sin I've been carrying in my chest for 2 decades. He's a teacher, high school English, same as you want to be. Keisha's eyes widen slightly, and I watch her processing this information, filing it away with all the other pieces she's been collecting. Is he why you stopped going to school? No. I shake my head, moving to the cabinet to get coffee mugs, something to do with my hands while I tell her the hardest parts. I stopped going to school because I was pregnant and scared, and didn't know how to be a mother and a student at the same time. He wanted to help, but what? I set the mugs down on the counter, my grandmother's good china ones with the tiny roses around the rim. Mama used to say you should use the good dishes for important conversations, that regular moments deserved beauty too. But he was married. The words hit the air like a slap, and I watch Keisha's face change, understanding flooding in, followed by something that looks like anger and disappointment all mixed together. Married. She repeats it the same way she said, my father, testing it, turning it over. So, you're my daughter. I step toward her, every instinct I have screaming to protect her from this hurt. You're the best thing I ever did, the smartest, most beautiful, most important thing in my life. How you got here doesn't change what you are. What I am is the reason you had to choose between him and your dreams. Her voice is quiet now, dangerous quiet. What I am is the complication that made everything impossible. No. The word comes out fierce, and I grab her shoulders, feeling the familiar weight of her under my hands. What you are is the reason I learned what real love looks like. What you are is the reason I became someone I could be proud of. What you are is the reason I stopped settling for pieces of people and started demanding the whole thing. Tears are running down her cheeks now, silent and steady, and I want to wipe them away. But I know she needs to feel this, needs to sit with it. The coffee maker gives one final gurgle and falls silent. Does he want to meet me? She asks. He wants to meet you tomorrow. If you want to meet him. Tomorrow? She pulls back from me, eyes wide. You've been planning this? While I've been worrying about college and the house and everything else, you've been planning to turn my whole life upside down? I've been trying to figure out how to tell you the truth without breaking you apart. I lean against the counter again, suddenly exhausted. The kitchen feels smaller than it did 10 minutes ago, like the walls are pressing in. The foreclosure notice, you finding out about the mortgage, it made me realize I can't keep protecting you from reality. You're grown enough to handle the truth, even when it's complicated. Keisha pours coffee into both mugs, her movements careful and deliberate. She adds sugar to mine without asking, 2 teaspoons, the way I've taken it since she was old enough to reach the counter. The gesture is so automatic, so full of love and attention, that it makes my chest ache. What else? She asks, handing me the mug. If we're telling the truth now, what else do I need to know? I wrap my hands around the warm ceramic, letting the heat seep into my palms. This is it, the moment I've been dreading for 20 years. The moment when I have to tell my daughter that she has a sister she's never met, that her father chose someone else's family, that the life we built together was constructed on a foundation of half-truths and careful omissions. He has another daughter, I say quietly. Maria. She's 18. Keisha sets her mug down hard, coffee sloshing over the rim onto the counter. A daughter. With his wife. Yes. So, while I was growing up without a father, she was growing up with mine. The pain in her voice cuts through me like a blade, and I have to close my eyes for a second. When I open them, she's staring at me with an expression I've never seen before. Not anger, exactly, but something deeper. Betrayal, maybe. The look of someone who's just realized that the person they trusted most in the world has been lying to them. Keisha, baby, I need you to understand. I need some air. She turns toward the back door, her hand already on the knob. I need to think. It's still dark outside, and cold. I don't care. She looks back at me over her shoulder. 20 years, Mama. 20 years you let me think I wasn't wanted, that I wasn't enough to make him stay. 20 years you let me carry that weight when the truth was that he couldn't stay. There's a difference. She steps out onto the back porch, letting the screen door fall shut behind her with a soft thud. Through the mesh, I can see her silhouette in the pre-dawn darkness, arms wrapped around herself, head tilted back like she's looking for answers in the sky. I stand in my kitchen, surrounded by the smell of coffee and the weight of choices I made when I was younger than she is now. And I finally understand what my mother meant when she used to say that love sometimes looks like letting go, even when every fiber of your being wants to hold on tighter. I watch through the screen door as Keisha stands on our back porch, her shoulders shaking, not from cold, but from the kind of crying that comes from deep inside your chest. The kind I did in hospital bathrooms when the nurses weren't looking, when I was 19 and scared and trying to figure out how to be somebody's mama, when I still felt like a child myself. The kitchen clock ticks loud in the silence, each second stretching like taffy. 4:30 in the morning, and my world is coming apart in the space between truth and protection, between the woman I raised my daughter to be and the woman I've been all these years. I set my coffee down and step toward the door, but something stops me. Maybe it's the way she's holding herself, arms wrapped tight, chin lifted toward the sky like she's drawing strength from somewhere I can't see. Maybe it's the memory of Mama's voice in my head. Sometimes loving somebody means giving them space to be angry with you. But then I hear it, a sound that cuts through me like glass breaking. Keisha is talking, and she's talking to herself the way I used to when I was trying to make sense of things too big for my understanding. 20 years, she's saying, her voice carrying through the screen. 20 years I thought something was wrong with me. 20 years I thought I wasn't worth staying for. My hand is on the door handle before I realize I'm moving. The metal is cold under my palm, but I can feel my own heartbeat thudding against my ribs, like it's trying to escape. This is the moment, the one I've been running from since the day I decided to keep David's secrets along with my own. I step outside, bare feet hitting the rough wooden planks of our porch. The morning air is sharp and clean, carrying the smell of Mrs. Henderson's jasmine vine from next door, and the distant sound of the first bus of the day rumbling down Martin Luther King Boulevard. Everything feels too real, too present, like the world has turned up its volume just to make sure I don't miss this. Keisha. My voice comes out smaller than I intended, and she turns to look at me. In the dim light from our kitchen window, I can see that her face is wet, but her eyes are steady. She looks like me at her age, determined and hurt, and trying to figure out how to be strong when everything feels like it's falling apart. You know what the hardest part is, Mama? She wipes her nose with the back of her hand, a gesture so familiar it makes my chest tight. It's not that he was married. It's not even that I have a sister I've never met. It's that you thought I was too weak to handle the truth. The words hit me like cold water, and I feel something shift inside my chest. A recognition that comes too late, but still comes. Baby, I never thought you were weak. I thought I was protecting you from getting hurt the way I got hurt. But I did get hurt. She steps closer, and I can smell the coconut oil in her hair, the same brand I've been buying since she was little because it reminded me of my grandmother's kitchen on Saturday mornings. I spent my whole childhood wondering what was wrong with me that my daddy didn't want to know me. I spent high school watching other girls get walked down the aisle at homecoming by their fathers while I stood there with Auntie Denise, grateful, but still feeling like something was missing. My throat closes up, and I have to swallow twice before I can speak. I know. God, Keisha, I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I used to make up stories about him, she continues, and now she's crying again, but talking through it. I told myself he was in the military overseas, or he was sick and couldn't travel, or he was looking for us but couldn't find us. I made up a whole life for him because the truth you gave me, that he just wasn't around, felt too empty to live with. I reach for her, but she steps back, not angry, but needing space to finish what she's saying. The rejection stings, but I understand it. I've done the same thing, needed distance to find my words. And now, I find out he was 3 hours away this whole time. He was building a life with another woman, raising another daughter, being the father to her that he never even tried to be to me. Her voice breaks on the last word, and I feel something inside me break with it. He wanted to be in your life, I say, the words rushing out before I can stop them. When you were born, he wanted to leave his wife. He wanted to start over with us. Keisha goes still, and I realize I've just opened another door I wasn't ready to walk through. But it's too late now. The truth is sitting between us like a third person on this porch, demanding to be acknowledged. And? She asks quietly. And I told him no. The confession comes out in a whisper, but it might as well be a shout for how loud it sounds in the space between us. I told him I wouldn't be the reason his family fell apart. I told him we'd be fine on our own. The silence that follows is different from before, not angry or hurt, but something deeper. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. When Keisha finally speaks, her voice is steady. You chose me over him. I chose us over a life built on somebody else's pain, I say, and for the first time in 20 years, I feel the weight of that choice settle into something that feels right instead of heavy. I chose raising you with integrity over raising you with secrets and guilt and the knowledge that your happiness came at the cost of another child's family. She nods slowly, and I watch her face change as she processes this. The anger is still there, but it's shifting into something else. Not forgiveness, exactly, but understanding. But I still deserve to know, she says finally. I deserve to make my own choices about whether to have a relationship with him. You did. You do. And that's why he's coming tomorrow. I step closer, and this time, she doesn't pull away. That's why I finally called him back. Because you're not my little girl anymore, and you get to decide what your life looks like. We stand there in the growing light, two women who love each other enough to hurt each other with the truth. And I realize this is what my mother meant when she said that raising children is just a long practice in learning how to let go. Not all at once, but piece by piece, choice by choice, until what you're left with isn't your child anymore, but the person they've become despite and because of everything you did right and wrong along the way. The first thing I notice is how different the morning light looks coming through our kitchen window. Same angle, same time. It's just past 6 now. But something about it feels softer, like it's illuminating things that were always there, but I'd been too afraid to see clearly. Keisha and I sit at the kitchen table with fresh coffee, the kind of silence between us that doesn't need to be filled. She's changed into one of her own shirts, a soft blue cotton that brings out the gold in her skin. And I realize I haven't seen her wear my clothes since she was in high school. Maybe she doesn't need to borrow pieces of me anymore. "So, what time is he coming?" she asks, stirring honey into her coffee. Her voice is steady, but I can see the slight tremor in her hands. 2:00. I wrap my fingers around my mug, feeling the warmth seep through the ceramic. "I thought we could meet at Riverside Park. Neutral ground." She nods, then looks at me with those eyes that have always seen too much. "Are you nervous?" "Terrified," I admit, and we both laugh, the kind of laugh that comes after crying, when your chest feels hollowed out but somehow lighter. "But I think that's okay. Some things should make you nervous." My phone buzzes against the table, and I see it's a text from my sister Denise. "Called in sick today. Coming over with breakfast. You need your people around you." I show the message to Keisha, who smiles, the first real smile I've seen from her in days. "Auntie Denise always did have perfect timing." "That woman has a sixth sense for family drama," I say, already hearing her car pulling into our driveway. "Probably bringing enough food to feed half the neighborhood. And probably calling Cousin Tanya and Sister Mitchell from church," Keisha adds, standing to look out the window. "Lord, here comes the cavalry." Sure enough, Denise is walking up our front steps with not one, but 2 grocery bags, and behind her, I can see Tanya's red Honda turning the corner. This is how it's always been in our family. When one of us is facing something big, we don't face it alone. "You know what?" Keisha says, opening the front door before Denise can knock. "Maybe that's exactly what we need." Denise sweeps in like she owns the place, setting bags on the counter and immediately putting her arms around both of us in one of those 3-way hugs that smell like her signature perfume. Something floral and expensive that she's worn since the 80s. "Y'all look like you've been through it," she says, stepping back to study our faces. "But you're still standing, so that's something." "We're okay," I tell her, and I'm surprised to realize I mean it. "We're going to be okay." Tanya arrives with Sister Mitchell in tow, and suddenly our kitchen is full of women's voices and the sound of breakfast being prepared without anyone asking what needs to be done. Sister Mitchell starts scrambling eggs while Tanya pulls out ingredients for pancakes, and Denise begins slicing fruit with the efficiency of someone who's done this dance 1,000 times. "Now," Sister Mitchell says, pointing her spatula at me like it's a conductor's baton. "I don't know what's happening at 2:00, but I know you're going to handle it with the grace God gave you. You hear me?" "Yes, ma'am," I say, feeling something settle in my chest. This is what I'd forgotten in all my years of trying to protect Keisha from pain, that we don't have to carry our burdens alone, that there's strength in letting your people see you struggle. Keisha catches my eye across the kitchen and nods, understanding passing between us without words. She's learned this lesson too, I think, that love doesn't always look like protection, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is trust someone else to be strong enough to handle the truth. We eat breakfast together, all of us crowded around the table that's really only meant for 4, and I listen to these women who've known me since before Keisha was born, tell stories about their own complicated families, their own hard choices, their own moments of having to decide between protecting someone and trusting them to protect themselves. "Your mama raised you to be strong," Denise tells Keisha, passing her another pancake. "Not because she wanted you to have to be, but because she knew life was going to require it of you anyway. And strength doesn't mean you don't get scared," Sister Mitchell adds, refilling coffee cups without being asked. "It means you do what needs doing, even when your hands are shaking." By the time they leave, with promises to check on us later, and instructions to call if we need anything. It's almost noon. Keisha and I clean up together, moving around each other in the kitchen with the practiced efficiency of two people who've shared the same space for 20 years. "Mama," she says as we're loading the dishwasher, "I want you to know that I understand why you made the choices you made. I don't agree with all of them, but I understand them." I stop with the plate halfway to the rack, feeling the weight of her words settle into something that feels like forgiveness. Not complete, maybe, but the beginning of it. "And I want you to know that I'm proud of the life we built," I tell her. "Even with all the mistakes, even with all the things I got wrong, I'm proud of who you became." She nods, then reaches over to hug me, and for a moment we're just two women holding each other in a kitchen that smells like pancakes and coffee, and the lavender dish soap we've been using since she was small. At 1:30, we get ready to leave. I change into a blue dress that Keisha picked out for my birthday last year, and she wears the earrings I gave her for Christmas, small gold hoops that catch the light when she turns her head. We're both nervous, but we're nervous together, and somehow that makes it bearable. In the car, driving toward the park, Keisha reaches over and turns on the radio. It's playing an old Anita Baker song, something slow and soulful about love and forgiveness and the way time changes everything and nothing all at once. "Whatever happens today," she says, looking out the window at the familiar streets of our neighborhood, "I want you to know that you're still my mama. You're still the person who taught me how to be strong and how to love people even when they disappoint you." My throat gets tight, but I manage to say, "And you're still my heart walking around outside my body. That's never going to change." We pull into the parking lot at Riverside Park, and I can see a man sitting alone at one of the picnic tables near the playground. Even from a distance, even after 20 years, I recognize the set of his shoulders, the way he holds his head when he's nervous. "That's him," I say, and Keisha nods. "Yeah," she says quietly. "I can see it. I can see why you fell in love with him." We sit in the car for another minute, both of us looking at this man who changed the course of our lives just by existing. Then Keisha reaches over and squeezes my hand. "Ready?" she asks. I take a deep breath, tasting the sweet tea I had with breakfast, feeling the silk of my dress against my skin, hearing the distant sound of children playing on the swings. All of it familiar, all of it the same as it's always been, but somehow different now. Like I'm experiencing it as the woman I'm becoming instead of the woman I've been. "Ready," I say, and we get out of the car together. As we walk across the grass toward the picnic table, I think about my mother and the wisdom she tried to pass down to me about letting go, about trust, about the difference between protecting someone and loving them. I think about the shoebox hidden in my kitchen cabinet and all the secrets I've carried alone for so long. I think about Keisha, walking beside me with her chin up and her shoulders back, ready to meet her father, not as the child who needed protection, but as the woman who gets to choose her own relationships. I don't know how this afternoon is going to go. I don't know if David and Keisha will find a way to build something new together, or if this meeting will be the beginning and end of their relationship. I don't know if I'll ever stop feeling guilty about the choices I made, or if Keisha will ever completely forgive me for making them without her. But I know that we're walking toward this moment together, and that feels like enough, like the beginning of something different and better and more honest than what came before. The grass is soft under our feet, and the sun is warm on our faces, and somewhere behind us, I can hear the church bells from 3 blocks over, ringing out the hour. Same bells I've been hearing for 20 years. But today, They sound like they're calling us forward instead of holding us back.